We are Rogue Media Sports.
Plus, it lightens the mood.
It is. When I show up, it does. It is the Doomsday podcast. Ed Werder, Matt Mosley, deep inside the bowels of the Ford Center with the all-pro
Ford Center, it's all glorious.
Bowels. When I'm doing beautiful things, you do not interrupt me, Ed. We're with Zeke Elliott, and Zeke coming off an unbelievable rookie season.
What was so unbelievable about it?
Well, he won all sorts of awards.
Who didn't know he was going to be great?
I don't know.
I knew he was going to be great. Did you know he was going to be great? I thought you were going to be great.
Well, he certainly, Ed, my God.
It is time for another episode of the Doomsday podcast.
Already.
I'm joined in the studio, Frito Nation Productions, by Ed Werder. And, Ed, I want to, first of all, before we get to a big-time guest, another big-time guest, this was Zeke Elliott. I would say both of us played a role in landing this big fish,
You went up
so
and
to
talked
speak.
to him and told him I was your partner, and he agreed to do it.
Well, I can't remember if I actually used your name or dropped your name or not, but I did go up to him. We landed him. That's the key. I mean, who cares?
It's a team effort.
Who cares who gets
Right?
credit? But more importantly, and we're going to talk more about this, can I just take this opportunity to congratulate, because I'm sitting next to a Hall of Famer. I mean, the McCann Award, this is as big as it gets when you talk about NFL contributors. And so as Jerry Jones gets ready to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, same weekend, here comes Ed Werder, longtime morning news, and then, of course, long run at ESPN for 17 years. Ed, congratulations. A big honor for you.
Thanks, and I'm just wondering if I've ruined it for Jerry going to Canton. I'm wondering if maybe he'll invite me to fly with him on his plane. I'm sure he's not taking the helicopter. So here's what's happened in this offseason, okay? I prematurely, in my mind, lost my job, and now I've been given an award for performance over the course of a career covering pro football. Do you think somebody's trying to tell me it's over?
That is the only thing when you get some of these sort of legendary type awards. There's probably some feel like, okay, how much time? But Ed, you're still in your mid-50s. You're still in your 50s.
This doesn't come with a job, this award, I don't think.
You're a viable...
There's no cash prize either.
No, you're a viable human being and an excellent reporter.
Viable
and
I
might say that I think you got many years left if you want to. But this is a pretty neat deal.
And if I choose not to pursue that, I've got this.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
The Doomsday Podcast, which is growing, and we want to thank our Patreon folks. Patreon, we've launched a Patreon page, and just so you know, if you'll go to if you'll go to patreon.com/Doomsday Podcast, you'll find our page, and that allows folks to have even an additional layer of access to us. And
are they going to come to the house?
We'll see. That's they got to spend a lot of money to do that. And but hey, I'm open to whatever. I'm always willing to experiment. But Ed, we'll talk more about it. I'm very excited for you. In all seriousness, I really am, and it's a very worthy honor. You're a very worthy candidate, and so excited that you're going to do that. And we got to decide if we have the budget to take Doomsday to Canton to watch this.
Well, I'll travel free.
We were going to camp together. Now we might end up in Canton,
Well, we
Ohio.
should, because all the Cowboy greats will be there to be in attendance when I win this award. I mean, I might be there for Jerry, but
and you
pretend it's my audience, and the team will be there because they're playing in the Hall of Fame game. So I definitely think we should go to that.
Yeah. I'm excited about it, and I will find a way. And I may need to stay in your hotel room. I don't know if I have the money, nor if I can.
Hotel rooms are hard to come by.
You're right.
They have their two biggest events simultaneously in Canton. They have the PGA stop at Firestone nearby, and they have the Hall of Fame weekend, and it's all in the course of the same 4 days.
Oh man, I didn't even think about the Firestone. What is that? The Akron Fire? It's somewhere down the road. You're right, Ed. It's without further ado, we'll get back to you, but we were fortunate enough to land Ezekiel Elliott, Cowboys All-Pro running back, and just coming off a remarkable rookie season, and he sat down with the Doomsday Podcast during the Cowboys minicamp. Here's our visit with him.
the offseason, now that you're in all these OTAs and now the glorified mini camp, what is the next thing you're trying to add to your game? What is because, you're constantly getting asked, you and Dak both, well, what about the sophomore slump, all that. Teams are going to do everything to try to slow you guys down. What's the thing you've been working on most and kind of taking it to the next level?
Well, with now being more comfortable in this offense and not really worrying about having to learn what I have to do, I kind of want to grow more as an overall player. One of the guys I looked up to growing up playing football was Marshall Faulk. You hear stories about him and how he was kind of like a second quarterback back there with Kurt Warner. And I want to. So this offseason, I've just been focusing on kind of learning the offense outside of my roles, and just kind of being able to be back there and be a help with Dak, and just kind of learning not what I have to do, but what everyone else is doing and how I fit into my job.
So do you watch tape like a quarterback even though you're a running back?
Yeah, Dak and I, we've been getting in some film sessions. So just, just kind of getting out there, asking more questions and kind of just broadening my knowledge.
What is it about Faulk? People do ask, and we were just talking to Coach Linehan, hey, is Zeke going to be more involved in the passing game? Are there some aspects like that attract you when you think about Marshall Faulk and what he was able to do that you think you could sort of add to the offense?
I think for sure, I think I can. And, just when you follow Marshall Faulk's career, you see earlier in his earlier career, he was definitely involved in the pass game, but he was more of a guy that kind of got grinded down. He had a lot of carries and was really rushed for great numbers when he was in Indianapolis. And then kind of as he got older, he grew more as a player. But I just like the fact that he was a guy that was great in all aspects of the game.
One of the things Scott said when we were talking to him about increasing your role maybe in the passing game, and he agreed that was possible, and they hate to take you off the field, but they really want to save you. They want you to be at your best at the end of the season, when you're trying to win the division, playing the final 4 regular season games and going into the playoffs. Is that a hard thing for you to accept when it's not that portion of the season that they're trying to save you for later on?
I think it definitely is hard. You have to learn to kind of manage during the beginning of the season and just kind of manage your reps and know that this is a hard, gruesome season. And when you get down that stretch, you want to be fresh and you want to be ready to go because at the end of the day, we're a run-first offense. So we like to grind guys down, and we get in those big games, that's what we're going to do. And so you got to be ready for those games with 25, 30 carries. But, I think I'm a young guy, though, so I got a lot in the tank, so I'm ready to leave it all out there.
What about the changes in the offensive line? How do you see that affecting the running game and you getting used to some of these new you're probably going to have 2 new players, one at right tackle and one at left guard, potentially.
Like every year, you're going to have to – there's going to be a little warming up here. You're going to have to get back in your groove. You're going to have to get back in sync. But, we got a lot of talent in the offensive line group. I don't think it really matters who goes out there and starts because, they're all capable. There's basically 5 first-rounders in that room. And then we have guys that have stepped up last year, like Chaz, who stepped up and played at a high level. So, I'm not really worried about those guys. Those guys work their tails off day in and day out. And, they're definitely the hardest working group, and it shows on Sundays.
Do you take pride, and we're talking to Zeke Elliott, Cowboys all-pro running back, in the fact that for a while people were getting scared to take running backs for various reasons? An Indianapolis running back comes to mind. To take them that early in the draft. Now, because of your success, it seems like it's swinging back the other way. Do you take some pride in that?
I think we all take pride in that. I think it started with Todd Gurley and Melvin Gordon, just guys that were drafted in the first round, high picks that had pretty good rookie seasons, and then they kind of laid it out for me. And then you can see the 2 first-round backs that came out this year. But, I think what teams saw is that, if you have a dominant run game, it just opens up a lot more. It makes the game a lot easier. You can control the game a lot more. So, I think that's how we built our team, and I think other teams are seeing the benefit of that.
What is it you think makes you unique? You're really strong in every aspect of the game as a running back. What, in your mind, makes you different than everybody else?
I think it's just my toughness and physicality. I think, the way we grind guys down through the first 3 quarters, and then you see in that last quarter just those holes gape open and just those big hitting runs, and it just that I think the attitude of this offense and the attitude of this team kind of matched my personality very well. Just the fact that we were able to go out there and just grind guys, and we're tough, and we don't back down. We're fighting the whole game, and when it gets to the fourth quarter, it's just, if you want it more than us.
You said before you like to be so physical that the other guys eventually quit.
Exactly.
Did you experience that last year?
I think we definitely did a good job of that last year. We have a very physical offensive line, and I try to run with a physical demeanor, and you saw that wear down defenses in the games last year. There'll be times we're going to the fourth quarter with a touchdown lead, and you hear 4-minute offense. We'll have a 9-minute drive for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. That's almost back-breaking. So, just us being able to do that just makes us that much better as a team.
What about the close relationship you and Dak have coming in together? How do you see that evolving going forward? How important is that to a team to have a running back and a quarterback who came in together, grow together, and be close personal friends like you seem to be?
I think it's great. It's all about relationships. That's just our whole team. Our whole team is close. And if you really love that guy next to you and think of him as your brother and your family, then you don't want to let that guy down, and that's what it comes down to on Sundays. But I think something we're definitely focusing on this offseason, just kind of getting together more, having more, team activities where we're doing stuff that doesn't really involve ball, so we can get out there and just, get to know each other better, have fun, and strengthen those relationships.
Green Bay's been the team that has kept y'all now 2 out of the last 3 years. Now only one since you and Dak have been involved. What do you think's the biggest thing to getting over the hump and getting in that NFC Championship game?
This is NFL, and every week you got to bring it. You're playing against the best of the best, and last year in that playoff game, we I wouldn't say we didn't put 4 quarters together, offensive or defensively. Early in the game, we struggled. I think we were down maybe 3 touchdowns, 3 scores, and you can't do that versus Aaron Rodgers, And so we just gotta come out there and just make the most of our moments. And it's the playoffs. Not really much margin for error.
You're kind of a prankster, a fun-loving guy in a locker room. Dak's kind of more of a reserved guy. Have you been able to influence his personality in any way with the way you interact with him?
I think we're
you're hitting him in the
friends.
face with stuff you're throwing during interviews.
I think we're friends.
You keep it loose.
It's definitely good to have a nice balance. I loosen him up a little bit, and he brings you back in a lot. And so I think that we do a good job of just balancing each other out.
Zeke, thanks for doing this. We appreciate your time very much.
Right, thank you.
Good luck here too.
Thank you. Yes, the Doomsday podcast. Yeah, tell folks you were on it.
And that was Zeke Elliott, joined the Doomsday podcast. Always happy to have him. Now we've had Dak. We've had Zeke. Who else, Ed, as we continue the Doomsday podcast, and we're welcoming folks, and again, Patreon page. You can go to patreon.com/Doomsday podcast if you want an extra layer where we give you extra videos and FaceTime and a lot of cool stuff. Ed, who's the next member of this offense that we need? We've already arranged to have Scott Linehan, offensive coordinator. Would Dez be our next?
And we've already had Dak Prescott.
Yes, said that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
What about? I think Jason Witten would be interesting. His first year without Tony Romo as a teammate. Year 15. Obviously, Tony chose to start his second career early. Witten chose through a 4-year extension to prolong his football career as long as possible. I think
I'm not that interested in Jason.
There goes another Twitter follower for you.
I'm kidding. I love Jason.
Jason Witten, if only the quarterback in recent years had his mentality and his desire to lead, I think this team would have been a little bit better off, because I think Jason really tried to fill, that void for Tony to some degree. But ultimately, he was just a tight end, and it's hard to be the leader of the offense when you're the tight end.
But he's one of the greatest tight ends to ever come through.
And some people question, whether he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Well, and really, I don't want to get too far off the path. We stop shaking your knee so much; it's like making everything bounce over here, Ed. As we continue this,
There's no rules in podcasting.
I do, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing. I'm telling you, this is so much better than live TV, where you like get 45 seconds. Back to you, boom. But anyway,
Chris Berman never complained about me shaking my leg.
Witten and Romo. He couldn't see you. He only had you. Like
I was on the desk sometimes.
No. Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Romo and Witten vacation at the same place I vacation. I might
at the same time.
Well, sometimes we are there at the same time, but it's always bugged me a little bit. I discovered this place
in the Panhandle of Florida.
Yes, I discovered this place many years before they did, and it was sort of before it became sort of like the place to go. Now everybody in Dallas goes there, and it's fine. We love it. It's called Seaside. It's also called Watercolor. It's where Sean Payton vacations.
Our podcast's supposed to be interesting.
And I find this. I'm sorry if you don't find. You can step outside. I'm enjoying this, and I think Frito is too. But it's always bothered me because I think Witten and Romo sort of act like they discovered this place, and I just want to say they're Johnny-come-latelys.
So that's why you don't want to have him on the podcast?
Yes. Yeah.
This is personal vendetta, so you don't want to have Romo on either?
Nope. Don't want to have either one of them. No, I like both of them. They're fine. They'll come on whenever we want them. We just haven't really gotten down to that level yet.
We're saving them for later.
We're still fine. Ed, our conversation with Zeke Elliott, a lot of interesting points. I'll start with this in my mind, and I know you got some stuff you want to get into. The fact that he grew up, wanted to go to Mizzou. His dad played at Mizzou, grew up in the St. Louis area. And I thought that was very interesting when he brought up Marshall Faulk, and that obviously is someone he watched as a kid and admires greatly. But that was a great question from you, where you said, hey, do you watch tape like a quarterback? I never really think to ask running backs that. We just think, hey, quarterbacks watch all this tape. Other players, maybe pass rushers, sometimes watch tape of other pass rushers. I don't always think of running backs in that way. And I thought it was interesting that he went straight to Marshall Faulk, and one of the all-time greats, and one of the guys when you think of, okay, who did it both as a runner and a receiver the best, there's only about a handful of those guys in the history of the NFL.
And I think that's where the Cowboys have the most potential to get Zeke more involved is in the passing game. I really expected in the playoffs that was going to happen, and it never really did materialize. Obviously, he had a heavy workload from the fourth game on through the rest of the season. But I think they need to get him more involved as a receiver. We know he can pass block, so he can be a three-down player, and that's why they drafted him at 4 and justified it that way, that he can protect the defense, the quarterback. But they've got to get him involved in the passing game, and Marshall Faulk was that kind of threat. Most teams don't invest a lot in their linebackers unless they're great pass rushers, and that's the guy that you want Zeke matched up against in the passing game is against a linebacker, because most of them don't have great cover skills. And, I did talk to a couple of other people, talked to Gary Brown, the running backs coach, about Zeke this year 2. Said he's in a much better place as far as being comfortable with everything in the playbook and what he's being asked to do, that his classroom work has been impressive. Thinks he's ready for year 2 in the NFL, and that his motivation comes from being determined to prove that what he did last year is not a fluke, and that it's not all attributable to having what most regard to be the best offensive line in football, although that is now changing too because they've lost a couple of players.
They have, although who knows? These players. Lyle Collins is thought to be a guy who had first-round talent. He just didn't take in the first round for some reasons we won't go into, but this could be a pretty remarkable offensive line, especially if he's able to move out there to right tackle. There's so many things that you just said that were interesting to me. I'll pick one thing out, though. Remember Brian Westbrook with the Eagles and the kind of – now, he was a dual threat. He was great at catching the ball, and he – probably didn't have the running skills that a Zeke has, but he was really good at it. He became such a threat that I can recall, like the Giants, when they would draft or go into free agency, they literally were seeking people out who might possibly have a better chance to cover him out of the backfield. One of those, and his name's escaping me now. He's at ESPN as one of the analysts, or he was one of those Giants linebackers.
Antonio Pierce.
There you go. Pierce was brought in a thought maybe he can keep up and cover Westbrook. And so I think when you have a weapon like that, it does cause other teams to go, okay, we have to find us somebody or a linebacker that can possibly match up. So I think that's going to be interesting. I also found it interesting, Ed, that the influence that Dak already has on Zeke. I think the Cowboys, a lot of times, you hope young players like that can grow together. But now, typically, two rookies, a quarterback and a running back, that are this young, you're like, okay, who else are they going to look up to, like a Jason Witten or whoever? But Dak is so mature already. I mean, we've discovered that for ourselves and some of just a couple sit-downs we've had with him, that I think the Cowboys are very comfortable right now saying to Zeke, please hang out with Dak. Please stay with Dak at all times. Like, that would be a very good thing.
When he was drafted, DeMarco Murray's advice to Zeke was to follow Witten around and do everything Witten did, handle every situation the way Witten does. And I don't know that has really happened. Instead, he and Dak have created this bond where they really, truly are virtually inseparable off the field. Now, that can go either way. If I'm the Cowboys, I certainly want Dak to influence the way Zeke behaves rather than Zeke influencing the way Dak behaves. We've seen examples of some issues that Zeke has already and he hasn't yet been exonerated by the NFL for this domestic violence accusation that's been levied against him. Although it seems to me, from the reporting I did on it, even the woman who was with his then girlfriend who made the allegations against him has not testified that her claims are accurate. But why the NFL still has not cleared him is an interesting fact all this time later. But I think that the Cowboys would really like Zeke to behave more like Dak than risk the other thing. And I assume that they would try to keep them apart when they're away from the facility if they didn't think Dak's way was winning.
Yeah, I almost sense when we were with him and these guys sort of grow up and all this, he had to get used to the spotlight at Ohio State. It's not like he wasn't getting a huge amount of attention there, and obviously he was sort of known. By the way, wasn't that great artwork by our buddy Chris Morris with lasers sort of coming out of
his abs?
Of the abs.
And he's in the kettle. He's in the Salvation
Army. He's in the
Army
kettle. I mean, and the drawing was so good. I mean, this guy, I always...
And his teeth were bigger than mine.
Yeah.
Which is important to John Elway and I.
Yeah, Peterson also had bigger teeth than you, I think, in his drawing. But this happens sometimes. The morning news will say to me, some of my buddies over at the morning news, they'll go, who does your artwork? And I'll go, well, this guy Chris Morris. And they're like... I'll go, he worked for you guys for like 10, 15 years. And they're just like, oh.
Maybe you should have recognized it before now.
Maybe you guys should have kept him around. But, no, anything else you want to say on Zeke before I move to another topic?
Yeah, I talked to an offensive coordinator in the NFL at about the time the draft was to begin. And, Leonard Fournette from LSU was a guy who was the first running back off the board. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he also went fourth. Or he went maybe higher than fourth. He went to Jacksonville very early on.
Jacksonville's picking. They're always picking really high.
And so I asked how this guy compared to Zeke, and he said, I don't know if he's as good as Elliott. I think Elliott has got rare run skills, and then you combine that with his balance and power and size and all that. He doesn't think Fournette is anywhere near the back that Zeke is. Describes Zeke as a guy who has really good power, speed, vision, ability to get little when he wants to get little, and a savvy about him that's really uncanny. And those are characteristics you don't normally associate with a rookie running back.
No. And I did bring that up in the interview, Ed, asking Zeke about maybe taking pride in the fact that maybe he's helped make it somewhat acceptable and make teams feel more comfortable taking a running back early, because after and I misspoke in that interview. I said something about Indy. Well, yeah, Todd Gurley went 10th, but Trent Richardson went 3rd to Cleveland. I said something about Indianapolis, which, they
wound up with him at some point. Yeah.
They did wind up with him, but it was Cleveland that took him at 3rd, and I think that was such a disaster that had a negative impact on teams. Like, do we really need to be taking people, especially when you saw DeMarco Murray put up enormous numbers for the Cowboys, and he was a third-round pick. I think for a while teams were like, why would we spend? But then when you have a rare,
he totally justified the pick. He had exactly the effect on that team that they drafted him to have, and that was, as I said, not only to take the pressure off the quarterback, which was more important than ever. I mean, they needed that to happen even if Romo was the quarterback, and to have a rookie come in and play quarterback as a fourth-round pick and start 16 games, which is the first time in history that's happened, that a guy taken after the fourth round at quarterback has started 16 games as a rookie. To have him take that pressure off the quarterback and to create the kind of offensive balance, to the mentality, the identity of the offense, and then to really keep the defense off the field, much like Murray did the other year that they won 12 games. They won 13 last year. That's the reason they had success. They know what the formula is, and they knew that they had to have a unique running back to do that, and Zeke has been exactly that.
Couple things that stood out to me, and Ed and I were out at the Cowboys mini camp and this past week, and we're able to watch a few things. Obviously all eyes are going to be on Dak, and it's not like they're obviously throwing against guys in shorts. I thought. I think one of the questions, and I'm hearing this from even people inside the organization and people around the league about Dak is, okay, what does he do year 2? Everybody's asked about the sophomore slump. I mean, it has happened to players before. But I think what's going to be interesting, and we sort of get at it in a future interview we're gonna share with you with Scott Linehan on, do you open up the offense a little more? There has been some thought, you have to kind of protect a rookie quarterback. He made some great throws, so he made some clutch throws. But the talk I hear is, okay, can this guy throw it downfield, fit it into tight spots when he's going to be asked to, and will he be asked to do a little bit more of that? Now, again, we're watching some rookie cornerbacks running around out there. Orlando Scandrick had the day off and was working on the side. I did see Nolan Carroll moving around out there. I will say this. I mean, Dak was throwing some balls 25, 30 yards downfield and on a line, and it was not – there was nothing that I saw that would ever give me pause like, oh, I don't think the guy's going to be able to throw it downfield. I think he has the arm to do it. Now, it'll come down to, okay, how accurate is he at making those sorts of throws, but the arm's there. And we saw some of the things he did this year. I think they will, let him take some more chances this year. And that's why I think the interceptions could go up, but that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. I mean, you don't want him to go way up, but he's going to throw a few more interceptions this year is what I'm trying to get at.
I think when you talk to people around the league who studied what the Cowboys did last year and how they handled Dak, the thing that they're most impressed with was how Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan and Wade Wilson evolve the offense from week to week as Dak became more capable, more confident, more experienced. They let him do more and more, and I think we'll continue to see that evolution in him as a quarterback. I think they've created a situation now where they have 2 slot receivers coming out of the draft with kind of 2 Cole Beasleys, that they can create some unique mismatches at the wide receiver position that previously they had to use a running back to get. So I think he's going to have some different opportunities. I think he can be more involved himself as a runner, especially in red zone type situations. The people that I've talked to compare him to a bigger Russell Wilson. And if he can be like Russell Wilson is in year 5 and 6, I think everybody would take that.
Yeah. With the Super Bowl and having appeared in,
should have won 2,
should have had 2 Super
really,
Bowls.
and even now, he gets his team in the playoffs every year, even though he doesn't have a great back and he doesn't have an offensive line that can protect him. I think
even though they brought in a great tight end, that tight end hasn't become a monster there that he was in New Orleans. And you're right, those wide receivers.
Doug Baldwin is really good. Doug Baldwin is unique.
I think Doug Baldwin is good, but they don't have anybody. They don't have anybody like Antonio Brown or Julio or even Dez. I mean, these are all Doug Baldwin's a good receiver, but I don't think he's an elite receiver.
If you look at his numbers, he's an elite receiver.
Okay.
His numbers are better than Dez Bryant's. Now, I think most people will probably take Dez Bryant if they believe that his foot is healthy.
Okay, well, I'll give you Baldwin, and that is an amazing pick because I don't even think Baldwin
wasn't drafted.
It wasn't drafted. But was it Kearney? Who are some of these other guys? Jermaine, who else have they
Jermaine Kearse.
Jermaine Kearse is who I mean. And I'm just, and the guy, sadly, we got Lockett. One of them got hurt really bad. That was
Ricardo
Lockett. The other one, the guy out of Kansas State, is a nice player. But I'm just saying, you're right.
Terrific speed receiver.
He's done it with maybe lesser skill players.
But I think one more point I'd like to make about Dak, and this is more about, I guess we're talking about the offense in general, and maybe these two rookies as they enter their second seasons. But I think when you talk to the coaches, the thing that most impresses them about Dak is, as somebody said to me, there's no "I got this" glide to the guy. He's still got this great work ethic. I saw a reference to him being the last one off the field when they completed this mini camp, their last on-field activities until they go to training camp out in California. So I think there's nothing but positive signs that Dak Prescott is going to continue to evolve as a quarterback.
I agree. I think a lot of folks, a lot of our listeners, subscribers, fans, friends would like to...
Family.
Loved ones. I think a lot of our folks would like to hear about some of these younger players. You mentioned that you kind of like Jordan Lewis and what he was doing out there the other day, and I have heard that he's the third-round pick out of Michigan, that even though he's smaller than Cheeto Awuzie, I've heard different ways to say it, but I'm going to go with Cheeto Awuzie at this point, but that even though Jordan Lewis is smaller, may have the best ball skills of those new...
Well, that's what the criticism was of Cheedy, was that he's not great getting his head turned around and locating the ball and picking it off. He's a great tackler. He's a good blitzer. He's a big physical guy, and you're going to have that, as we said, with Terrell Pryor and Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey now in your division. You got 6 games against those guys, or 8 games against those guys. So they're going to have to be awfully good in those situations.
I think you're right. Jeff Heath. This is an interesting question about the Cowboys, because Jeff Heath was a guy that came out of like Saginaw Valley State, from Rockwall, actually, and he, there's this thought, and I don't know if it's fair for anybody to sort of make that. They're like, well, Barry Church kind of came out of nowhere, Barry Church was taken, 4th or 5th round. Heath's sort of the similar guy. And so the thought is, well, he could just kind of step in and become Barry Church. Well, these are different players. Heath is one of those guys I always thought could really help you as long as he wasn't out there too long. This is a worrisome part of this Cowboys defense to me, is Jeff Heath being out there pretty much full time. Now, in that practice that we watched on Tuesday, had a couple interceptions. He's always seemingly been the guy who seems to be around the ball the most.
In the New Orleans game, how many first downs did New Orleans have in that game in the Superdome a couple years ago?
It was about 3 years ago, wasn't it?
30 first downs or something like that.
They went crazy on him. And, of course, he was out there when Calvin Johnson...
he sure is around a lot of touchdown passes.
Yeah. But now, in the Green Bay game, he had an interception. Yeah. He makes some plays, and he's always one guy that's always knocking the ball loose. And so I think from a takeaway standpoint, he's good. I'm just worried about him getting exposed. But I will say, the other day in practice, he was the guy who had 2 interceptions. And every time, unlike some of the other defensive backs that have come through here, Brandon Carr, every time he gets his hands on a ball, he seems to catch it. So, there's the good and the bad. But I that's a worrisome position. Now, I'll say this.
Look, it's all worrisome if they don't get pressure up front, and they are relying on a lot of young people and a lot of guys who haven't done it on defense to do things that they have not done at this level if they're going to have a successful season.
I think the guy that they're really counting on a lot that we don't talk about enough, because he was a first-round pick, but he was late in the first round, and Zeke's come in since then, and that was just more of kind of an exciting pick. Byron Jones. I think there's a belief that he could end up being the best player in the secondary. They kind of need him to be that guy. And from what I'm told, and I always think of Dez as being the most athletic guy on the team. That just seems, just watching him out there, even watching him throw a football about 60 yards.
Left-handed.
But I'm told that it's Byron Jones is the best athlete on the team, and it's not really that close. Now, that doesn't always translate to being
the best athlete on the whole team.
Correct. That's what I'm being told.
Have you been lied to
My
before
sources,
out there?
Oh, certainly.
Have you maybe misunderstood some things at times?
Do not try to poke holes through this. They believe Byron Jones.
Well, he had a great combine. I mean, he literally jumped his way into the first round out of Connecticut with the record that he set at the combine in the long jump.
Yes.
On the field, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the guy make that many great plays.
I haven't either.
Quite honestly.
But I mean, you could not make that many great plays and still be an incredible athlete. So I'm
right. Also, it means nothing if he's the greatest athlete on the team, but he doesn't make any plays.
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
I thought you were talking him up.
No. I'm told he's simply the most athletic guy on the team, Ed. I'm saying he can go out there.
I want the best football
and
players.
Jump the highest. Probably so. Probably you do want that. But I mean, he was kind of the Mike Mamula of that.
I kind of thought that's where you were going with this whole thing. Was that this guy is going to be an unexpectedly great player?
I do think they think that. What you just said. I think they think that he could be. Sean Lee continues probably to be the best defensive player, but they think maybe Byron Jones is right there with him, or next. He's the next guy to be sort of a cornerstone type player. That's
what they drafted him to be, but I haven't seen it yet.
Are we still on TV as we do the podcast, Frito? Because I haven't really looked over there in a while to get.
You don't have your sunglasses on. You spent an hour talking about why you have to wear them, and now you take them off.
Ed, people, especially our Patreon folks and our Twitter Live people, they love that stuff, man. They love the behind-the-scenes stuff I was giving them on my vacation spots. By the way, I'm going to Key West this year. I'm going to be down there. Where Buffett hangs out.
I thought you were going fishing with Jimmy.
Would love that.
I did that once.
I don't doubt that, and I would love for you to set that up.
Would you love me to tell you a story about that?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Doomsday podcast transitions into story time.
So Jimmy had invited me to come down because I had asked him about doing a story when Steve Spurrier left Florida and became the head coach of the Washington Redskins. He was perceived by people at ESPN to be kind of the next Jimmy, right? The offensive, defensive mastermind, psychological genius. And so he was going to succeed at the NFL level like Jimmy had. So I wanted to come down and get Jimmy's point of view on that. So he tells me, come on down. He says, hey, we'll get on the jet skis. We'll go out fishing. I'm like, I got to do an interview. Yeah, we'll do that. So anyway, he told me, he says, so what time do you want to go fishing? Me and my producer. And I said, well, I appreciate you letting me choose, but I'm not really a fisherman. And so I would probably pick 10 o'clock in the morning. And I think fishermen are probably coming in at 10 o'clock in the morning, not going out. So why don't you pick? He said, okay, I'll pick 6 o'clock. Okay, 6 o'clock, we'll see you then. So my producer and I stopped at a Waffle House. We didn't want to get queasy out there on the waves. So we drive up to Jimmy's house in Isla Mirada, Florida. He's rolling around on his red ATV. He drives over by my window to let us in. I roll down my window, and he says, what time is it? And I said, it's 6:04. And he said, what time were you supposed to be here? And I said, 6 o'clock. And he said, you guys going to fish or you going to F around all day?
And so then you went out on the boat.
We went out on the boat. I was a little reluctant at that point. He's a man who can hold a grudge. We had an outstanding time. Went out 26 miles. We caught a couple of dolphin, which he quickly turned into lunch for us. And it was quite a time. We saw a big hammerhead shark.
Oh, my.
Jimmy was reeling in all his gear. He didn't want anything to do with this hammerhead shark. So it was great. It was a fun time, a great interview. And he was very accommodating.
Sometime I want you to tell the something funny Ed story from Jimmy, because I think that happened at like a news conference that Jimmy was involved with, and I think Kalashaw and you were out there on the beat, and so I'd like to reserve that one for another time. Now I want to end this. God knows I need to end this.
I just ended it on the highest possible note.
No.
Why are you still talking?
I've got a higher note.
Why would you try and beat that?
Well, I will.
Okay.
In fact,
here we go.
Because I just want to bring this up again. I've already mentioned it. The McCann Award and the Hall of Fame. I talked a little bit about it when we started today, but I'm very excited for you, and I think you're an incredibly worthy award recipient. And now, for folks that don't know, this is Pro Football Writers Association. They vote on this. Now, there were some big time. I think Mort was up for this.
Mort won last year.
Mort's won this thing in the past.
Rick Goslin. Both of them have been our guests.
Yeah. But, I mean, I saw some of the people that you were up against even this year, and, I mean, these were sort of the huge names, and even you were kind of joking, hey, I don't know if this is a good year for me to be up for this.
Adam Schefter.
Yeah,
Jeff
Schefter.
Legwold. Vinny DeTrani, who's a Parcells guy. Ron Borges.
All more accomplished people than you. But no.
None of whom you could get for the Doomsday podcast, however.
That's right. No. But very exciting. I was thrilled to hear the news. I think a lot of people were. I couldn't help, because that's the way my mind works. Think of some of these ESPN folks and think what they were up to. But Ed, you've been gracious and you didn't bring that up. You'll let people like me do that. But I just want to say the Doomsday podcast, I would hope. Now, will there be some sort of, do you want me to introduce you at this, like the induction ceremony? Is somebody going to introduce you like somebody will introduce Jerry, or how will this work? Or will you just get up there and make a little speech?
I think I have a much smaller platform than the guys who, like, I don't think somebody's coming over and carving a bust of me for the proceedings like they are Jerry and Jason Taylor and the others who are going in. Kurt Warner.
We should have Chris Morris design a bust of you.
Kind of awesome.
But now So what happens?
So there's
or is there a wing for the media folks that?
I think there's a plaque that they give you. So from what I understand, on Thursday night there's a big dinner. Where these players who are being inducted get their gold jacket and wear it in public for the first time. And at that dinner, I'm given like 2 minutes to give some kind of speech about winning the McCann Award, which I'm very honored to win for a lot of reasons. And one you mentioned is the list of people who have won it before me. I mean, a lot of these people, like, Dave Anderson, people I read when I was a kid, who inspired me to pursue a career in journalism, and my good friends like Rick Goslin and Chris Mortensen and Peter King. I mean, to join those people means a lot to me. And then I think I get a plaque myself on Saturday at the big ceremony. And I may give a shout out to Brett Favre since he gave me one last year. I think I owe him that. And then I think your name is engraved on a plaque that remains in the actual Hall of Fame display in Canton. And people have and when I was notified that I'd won, which I didn't expect, when I was notified I was won, they said it's a little awkward. Usually, I don't know. They said that we've had somebody win who wasn't employed at the time. So which affiliation do you want to use? Because if you look at my checkered past, I've been in a lot of places, and so who do you want on this plaque? And I said, well, there's really only one. I mean, ESPN, despite what has most recently happened, provided me opportunities I never would have had. I never would have won this award if I hadn't been at ESPN. So to me, ESPN belongs on the plaque. And I'll have them on there if they don't mind being on with me.
Oh, I think they'll. Yeah, I think you should have an asterisk by it or something that indicates that sort of indicates.
It's like a Barry Bonds.
That's right. No, just that. Yeah, it was a premature ending. Which, hey, a lot of us have struggled with that over the years. So
the eye thing wasn't the last medical problem you were going to discuss here.
All right, that is the episode. And Ed, I'm thinking about traveling there. You and I were going to fly out, and I was going to try to take Frito with us as well to Cowboys training camp. And we still may try to do both, but I'm leaning toward maybe trying to get to Canton. And now I'll need you to get me into this dinner. Like, I'm going to need to get into some of these places.
I'll tell Miss Jill she just lost her seat.
Ride your coattails. You should get more than just Jill. I mean, you should be able to bring some family
really
members.
About me. It's about the players.
God.
It's about the players. It's a much bigger thing for them.
When you say it's not about me. Okay.
It's not.
All right. I'll make it about me. I promise you. All right. The Doomsday Podcast. That is week 14 in the books. Good night, everybody.
14? I'm missing some checks.